My golden sister framed me for stealing her idea for a promotion. I exposed her, and now she's jobless. My name is Alex, I'm 27, and yes, I work in an ad agency where I've been making a name for myself over the past few years. You know that feeling when you're giving it your all, gradually working your way up, and earning the respect of your colleagues and bosses. Respect isn't something that just happens. You have to earn it. But where am I going with this? Let's just say my path to success was a bit more complicated. Why was I always one step ahead? It was mostly thanks to my dear sister, Lisa, 29. She was the golden child of our family, the classic unicorn, who could do no wrong. Lisa was always our parents' favorite. She could convince them that tomorrow, kittens would fly to Mars in spaceships, and they'd be ready to buy tickets to see it. Beautiful, confident, and perfectly networked, her face alone could easily sell a miracle anti-wrinkle cream on TV, and people would line up to buy it. Meanwhile, I lived in her shadow, though I wasn't lazy myself. But there was never any direct competition between us, until she started acting suspiciously. Recently, a senior manager position opened up at my office. Honestly, I didn't think much of it at first. I was completely absorbed in my own project, one I'd been working on through countless late nights, imagining it would shake things up in a big way. But then Lisa made her grand entrance. She confidently announced she'd come up with something revolutionary. I know, everything in this business is supposedly revolutionary. But she managed to silence even the most skeptical staff with her conviction. She presented her project with such fervor, like it was classified NASA intel she'd gotten access to by some special privilege. At first, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but the more I listened, the clearer it became that her genius project was painfully familiar. It was my project. Every slide, every graphic, it was all the fruit of my sleepless nights. Within 30 seconds, I realized Lisa had blatantly stolen my project. She didn't even bother to change the details to disguise it as her own. While she was soaking in the applause for her revolutionary idea, I was burning with rage. This had gone beyond sibling rivalry. It was an all-out war. After her brilliant presentation, I walked up to Lisa, doing my best to look calm, as though my nerves hadn't just been shredded. You know that feeling when you're on the verge of losing it, but you hold it together just enough to ask why your own sister would steal your project so shamelessly. I confronted her directly, and you know what she did? She just smirked at me, like she'd caught me in some childish trap. "Oh, Alex, no one's going to believe you," she said with a patronizing tone, as if I were a little kid trying to explain that I'd solved Einstein's formula. "You really think they see a genius in you? Please, you're just the guy with papers and creative ideas. I'm the star of the show here." My reaction? I could feel my fists clenching so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. But hey, I know myself. I could have blown up right then and there, trying to prove my case, but what good would that do? Losing my temper would only work in her favor. She'd smirk even wider and make it look like I was just upset that her project was better. So yeah, I stood there, pretending to be calm. She probably thought I was going to back down and fade away, leaving her to bask in all the glory. That night, I stayed at the office until everyone else had gone home, wandering around like a ghost, reviewing every draft, every sketch. I knew there had to be proof. I just had to find it. I needed a plan, not just to storm in yelling, "She's a thief," but to systematically, carefully expose her scheme. I even found an old file with the first version of my project. Perfect. This was my first small but crucial step toward justice. The next day, I ran into her on the stairs and, putting on my best actor's face, gave her a fake smile, casually saying, "You know, Lisa, if this project really means that much to you, go ahead. You probably need the spotlight way more than I do." She smirked, thinking I'd surrendered. God, how I wanted to tell her that her victory was just an illusion she'd created for herself. For the next week, I went on a full-blown evidence hunt. Evenings and nights blended together in an endless search through files, notes, and drafts. I felt like a spy gathering evidence to expose an international conspirator. My entire project was scattered across fragments, but I had to piece them together until I had a complete picture. File by file, note by note, I was reliving every step I'd taken to build this idea. You can't imagine how thrilling it was. Here was an early draft from the first days, where I jotted down the idea that would become the foundation. And here, hastily scribbled notes for improvements. And finally, the proof. Screenshots, old versions, every little piece of evidence showing that I, and no one else, had built this concept from the ground up. This was my legacy, and I wasn't about to just let it go. Everything was going smoothly until one evening when Lisa showed up at my office. She appeared out of nowhere, like a figure stepping out of the fog in a horror movie. I honestly jumped when I saw her. Her face was dark, as if she'd just received some bad news herself. "You just don't get it, Alex," she began in an icy tone. "This project is my ticket to the top, and I'll do whatever it takes to secure that promotion." What a statement, right? I'll admit it was hard to stay calm. Everything in me screamed to retaliate, but I clenched my teeth and nodded as if nothing had happened. She definitely had a knack for intimidation. But whatever. She had no idea I'd already planned a move she wouldn't see coming. You know what was funny? While she thought she held all the cards, I had an ace up my sleeve, ready to play at any moment. The big day arrived. The whole office gathered, dressed to the nines, waiting to see who'd get the promotion. Lisa was glowing like a superstar on the red carpet. Her expression said it all. She was sure she'd be crowned and ascend the throne as senior manager. But there was just one problem for our queen. I knew exactly what I had to do. The director took the stage, ready to announce the winner. And right as he opened his mouth, I stood up, interrupting the grand ceremony. I spoke in a steady, business-like tone. "Excuse me, but I have something important to share." The room fell silent. Shock. And Lisa? She was as pale as a sheet, looking like I'd just told the office she had 3 heads. The room was filled with tense silence, like the calm before a storm. Everyone stared as I calmly laid out draft after draft. Messages, old files, everything I had. It was an evidence showcase, like a detective scene where every clue pointed to the true creator of the project, me. Whispers, exchanged glances, a quiet panic spread across the room. Some colleagues leaned closer to see the evidence, while others shook their heads in disbelief. The director frowned, turning to Lisa, who now looked like she'd been caught red-handed. "Lisa," he said calmly, "do you have an explanation?" What followed was her pathetic show part 2. It wasn't some grand performance, though. It was a flimsy attempt at damage control. She stammered, mumbling about forged evidence. But when you're cornered, that's about all you've got left. The proof was so clear and undeniable that her brilliant project crumbled right before everyone's eyes. That day, Lisa lost more than just the promotion. She lost her job and her reputation. Her fall was swift, like a house of cards collapsing with the slightest breeze. I could practically feel her world falling apart around her as she stood there, utterly defeated, in front of the entire office. When I walked out of the office, I thought I'd feel triumphant. You know, like in the movies, a triumphant light, epic music, leaving with my head held high. But actually, I felt something else entirely. Strange relief, a void. I realized I hadn't wanted to destroy her. She chose this path herself, and all I did was lead her to the end.